Hi, Kiran. It's really nice to meet you. Just to let you know, we are going live too. So you can connect with Izabela. But if you don't want to show your face on the live stream, then just off your camera and on your audio.
Yeah, hi. I'll actually follow on YouTube. It's easier for me.
Okay. Hi, Kiran. It's really nice
Hi.
to meet you. Just to let you. So I believe we are live on YouTube. So you're perfect. I can see myself.
Yeah. I'll go there.
Fantastic. Great to meet you, Kiran and Andrea. It's absolute pleasure to be tonight with you. I am here joining from United States. I'm in Colorado. Where are you joining us from, Kiran?
I'm from Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur.
So you're in the Kuala Lumpur as well as Andrea. Fantastic. So we're hoping that we're going to have some really interactive dialogue here. Obviously, hot topic that is one of the most keyword searched. It's a legacy and leadership. So go figure, right? And we're going to figure it out why. But before we go, I wanted to just ask you, can I take on a little journey, the journey of the world messenger, so that you can discover a little bit about who I am, what I'm all about, and what this book is all about, that I'm going to have a special getaway for so many of you that are going to be participating actively. Sounds fantastic? Is it sounding good?
Sounds perfect.
Oh, yes. It will be very interesting.
So buckle up for this amazing journey then, because obviously people are coming from different parts of the world. And once upon a time, when I was 5 years old, a girl, I did not have no idea. I just knew the bigger world somehow intuitively existed, right? But it's like, what's going on? You're looking up in the sky, you see airplanes going many directions, and you wonder who is on those airplanes, where they're headed, what is happening, right? And before I knew it, my world started getting bigger and bigger because of travels and experiences. And those things that I started experiencing very quickly by digesting so many books and home library, in the library, hiding and reading books that I should not be reading, because I was reading books advanced 2, 3, 4 grades up, because I was absolutely curious kids on steroids, because so many questions. That was before internet era, Kiran. I'm sure you can relate to that. Before we had an internet, we had to go and search and read encyclopedia, find the notes, figure it out, check the globes, check the maps, and then think about it, all of the information, and put things in perspective. I'm sure you remember that early age of you being in the school and trying to figure it out, what's important to you, right? And self-discovery. And
sure. Yeah. And also, there's the whole digital thing as well, where we started with typewriters until now we have all these laptops and mobile.
Yes, and I have actually a friend that started using the typewriter from his mom that has an amazing story. And the reason I'm bringing that up, it's how exciting that is, because we can still leverage some things from the past and find satisfaction and beauty in it, and connect in ways that we don't really see appreciation as much anymore. But also laptops and digital social media changing everything, doesn't it? So it's really interesting how things expedite it, right? Like more we learn, more we explore, more stuff we get exposed to, we have chance to really look at what is all about that leadership and legacy, and why is this so important, right? Because on an intuitive level, when we're younger, we look up to people in our industries or our spheres. We look to our teachers, we look at people in community. But what changes over a period of time is like people that we feel like we can connect and we can trust, right? And we build that. And it's interesting. I don't know what you wanted to be when you were younger, but I wanted to be so desperately Olympian. For me, were Olympics all about bringing world together. I was so mesmerized by seeing flags, people's traditional clothing, different languages, and frankly, different cuisines and food. I'm sure food in Malaysia is delicious, and I cannot find a better reason to come to visit you guys next year in the live summit, and opportunity to experience that. Because guess what? If we don't put ourselves out there, we will never know what we're missing out, right?
Right.
So with that in mind, I remember something really interesting that happened during Olympics, because that brought up a lot of questions from early time when I would watch by my dad movies, documentaries from Gandhi to Mother Teresa's charity and everything else, and seeing how world and landscape was very different culturally, linguistically, obviously, but social economically too. And how do we now bridge the gap, and how we do create amazing opportunities? And of course, since I could not be Olympian from various reasons, but mainly because at that time was no much invested in female sports. I was already told, even though if you're good, you have to be exceptionally good, and you have to have a trainer, and you have to have a money. And as you know, all of those things very quickly get shut down before they could even develop. So as they say, one dream dies, another gets born. And why I'm sharing this is I became educator. I remember deciding, if I could not fulfill my dream, I wanted other children to fulfill their dream. I wanted to be that educator who always will let them know that what they needed to do to make their imagination going, to daydream and keep going. And my first teachers that I remember vividly, two professors in history and geography class, both of them were male, gave me the first glimpse beside my father, mom, and grandma what leadership it's all about. They saw my undying hunger and passion, and they allowed me to teach class numerous times in advance to children, because they knew that I had so many stories because of encyclopedias I read, because of the countries I was learning about, and stories that I discovered. And as a result, before even I could capitalize what was going on internally with me, I obviously feel like that world messenger journey became from as back when I was 5, and never stopped, and actually prepared me for something that I never expected. And prepare me also to look at what leadership is about in terms of action, not in terms of theory, but what it then means in terms of practical application. And it's sad that we almost have 8 billion people right now in the world. 8 billion, almost 7.9, over 7.9. And we still have such a huge deficit of leaders, and such a few people that truly acquire in their lifetime meaningful, impactful legacy. And it's interesting because I also had a very painful lessons. When former Yugoslavia broke off and war started, I very quickly realized how many people are there that are part of system and part of this divide. And all of a sudden, people that I trusted, that they were very strong.
Izabela, we cannot hear you. Can you check the audio, please?
Can you hear me now? I did not mute it, so can you hear me?
To the audio now.
Yeah, audio is on.
Okay, now it's back. It's back. You're back.
Okay, no problem. Sorry, but it's a very interesting thing that what I want to share here is that Nadiha, Kirjan, and Andrea, what is really happening is when bad events occur, very quickly then we can see who truly a leader is, what color they wear, right? Based on their actions, based on their behavior, and also how they contribute to people. And it's really interesting because I'm seeing so many theories. People use leadership so introvertly on so many things, and it's a million different definitions and meanings out there, right? Who is the leader and who can be the leader? Are they leader born? Are they leader made? And how they're made? And I have to say, everything starts with that early childhood foundation. How are we raised? What type of values we exude? What type of values we practice on a consistent basis? And for younger generation that is watching, listening in this workshop, and it's obviously catered to you guys because you're just starting out, it's so very important to whatever you are doing to stand behind it fully of your actions and your behavior. Because guess what? Your peers are watching, your parents are watching, but even when no one is watching, it's so important to exude those traits that you will feel proud about it, and you know your family, your parents, people that matter the most to you will feel the same. And with that in mind, obviously, we have so many desires because leaders wanted to exude so much. And right now boils down to it, who is truly loyal? Who is loyal to you? Who is loyal to your organization? Who is loyal in general to you as an individual, even when you hit the rock bottom and going through the hardships, right? They also exude excellence, because it's all about, how can I be the best version of me? How can I be the best version for me from yesterday? How can I raise the bar, not to compete what others are doing, but with myself, right? So as more people are joining in, which I'm super thrilled, please make a comment, tell us where you're from, which countries you're joining us, so that we can also interact with you, because I have specific treats and special giveaways. Okay, fantastic. But then also we're looking at something that's also important in leadership, which is attitude. Attitude of, I don't know maybe everything today, but I will figure it out. I will do the best I can with what I got. And I'm gonna not only just give up when it's hard and challenging, but I'm gonna continue, right? And then it's also something very important that people forget about, it's that discipline. Specifically for you younger generations that are starting out, nothing happens with a great discipline. If we're not disciplined to have daily practices that are not negotiable, getting up early, starting our day by doing the specific routines and tasks as on the pilot. As we get up out of the bed, we go to the bathroom, we brush our teeth, we brush our hair. Those things should be also as part of who we are, because of that discipline, how we self-control, self-regulate, and at the same time do things to make us really stand out, right? And of course, leadership would never be anything but without that education piece. And I can attest to you guys living in Europe, being a refugee, coming in the United States after proving refugee status, after living in 4 countries by myself. And I was barely 19 years old at a time, 18 and a half, and not having parents or anyone to ask for advice, not even having a mentor. I was so amazed to see how many times I had to start all over. And why I'm bringing the education piece, when you think it's hard, think about it, studying 4 different languages, or think about it starting all over because your credits are not accepted maybe from one country to the next, or you can't even get the transcript because war torn country, and what options you may have, right? But also something also important in leadership is that reliability, how we relate to each other. Right now, we are representatives of the global sphere, right? Because we have this amazing technology and interactions and ways to get together, see each other, ask questions, no matter the distance, because the virtual world and technology allowed us that, right? But what else is important, that reliability? How can we communicate to each other with that diverse lens, with that amazing inclusion and desire to truly connect? Because right now we're seeing so many people are trying to push their own agenda, push whatever it's important to them, but without really pausing and asking questions. Without asking question, Andrea, what's important to you? Nandi, what is important to you? Suzanne, what are you doing currently? And what do you need help? And what will be good for you to learn more about? When we start asking questions, magic happens. Because every time when we assume that we know what other person wants or needs or desires, that's where we get in trouble. And that's not leadership all about, right? So we cover loyalty, excellence, attitude, discipline, education, reliability. But I want to now tackle another group of words that in the leadership stand out. And this particular one is service. I remember as a little girl having little money that I would get from family, that I will save, that I was learning to save and not buy on the chocolate, which was so easy to bribe me with. But also to really learn something very powerful. My grandma was contributing to Mother Teresa's charity. Mother Teresa was born in former Yugoslavia and was such a natural match. At that time, Mother Teresa was operate in her orphanages in Africa. And for me, seeing every Christmas with anticipation, the postcards from children with smiling faces, thanking me and appreciating me, standing by huts in very little clothing, what they had on them, with no shoes, with bare feet, usually just a t-shirt on their body. But these beautiful glistening smiles, I realized that that service has so many layers. I realized that even little money or little intention or little written letter that will be later on translated and communicated to these children will mean so much if it comes from heart. And I remember at that time, I started putting smiley faces, the sunshine, and hearts before we all had these emojis today. And why I'm saying this is how that service it was installed in me and never died away, and how important that is for us to look at. How do we show up? How do we do the service, and what that means to us, right? But that is also impossible if we don't have humility. We have to be very humble. Humility is important because it takes away the walls, takes away the power play, takes away the title. Because that's why I asked you in the beginning of this presentation, can I take you on a journey with the World Messenger? And also to share some parts of my journey as the World Messenger. And you said yes. And that is really all about, because that journey is our journey. Because today at this moment, we're going on the journey together. And through humility and listening to one another and dialoguing and asking questions, which I'm anticipating to see more of, so please feel free to do that. We have opportunity not only to practice that service, but also to do it in a way that other person doesn't feel that they're receiving handout, that other person feels being respected and treated with the dignity. And treated with utmost humane way, which we see today a lot of people missing. And it's sad, but it's something that can be taught, and sooner or quicker we learn, the better we will be, right? But one word that I always get stuck on in the leadership itself of this beautiful acronym is integrity. Right now, as I mentioned earlier, we have almost 8 billion people in the world, and we have the biggest shortage of leaders that operate with integrity, with high standards and ethics. And we also have a huge confusion because a lot of people in the past purposely use word leadership as association to their title and position and the power, when in reality, their behavior don't exude anything that we're just talking about, which we always have to take a look and think. Just because someone has the power position and title, do they exude the leadership traits? And what kind of traits do they exude? And if they don't, why? Okay? So that integrity can be truly intact and demonstrated through everything, right? But one thing on that leadership trajectory with that last letter, which is P, I love the most about it, which leads to this amazing conversation that we really want to also tackle tonight, which brings the word from leadership to legacy. It's that purpose. I can't tell you how many C-suite executives or senior vice presidents and presidents or presidents in general at their point of life right now in their late 40s, 50s, or 60s, they're revisiting their purpose for 5th, 10th, or 12th time. Everything started changing with the pandemic that we experienced dramatically. And I'm sure you've noticed the change and difference, right? Why is this change happening? For first time, whole world at the same time experienced a lot of pain and suffering. Every single nation were affected, some more than the others, unfortunately, due to obvious reasons, right? Their infrastructure, their socioeconomic status. But ultimately, the virus that came through was a virus that did not have an excuse to say, oh, we're not going to go to Western countries, or we're not going to be able to expose others. It was absolutely happening everywhere. And what that means is that during the time when we think that we have years to come, and in reality, we may only have today, more than ever, people start thinking, what is my purpose? What can I do with just the day that I have in front of me? And many, as a result, changed their purpose. Many of them thought that they were working towards career ladder, the title, the status, the prestige, more money, more influence, more impact, but from very wrong reasons, right? And when you look at why we're doing what we're doing and what are we trying to create, is it really helping anybody else but ourselves? Then really that puts all this beautifully together when this beautiful dance can happen. And then that's where you start subconsciously and then consciously looking into what is happening on the leadership level. And one thing I wanted just to say, again, as I'm smiling and seeing, why we're actually even interested in this topic and why it's so important, why these words, again, the most searched and researched, I think I got a pretty good sense of right now in the leadership. Not only it's deficit there, but also we need to look at what we value in the leaders and why we really need them more, so that they can help remove the obstacles and help us to navigate these complexities, not only on individual and team level, but organizational level, right? And then how this is now impacting us on the global scale. Because right now we have more than ever a tremendous opportunity to level so many things where we can truly interact and engage with each other in very different ways than originally I started. I started actually to work after I escaped and overcame horrible atrocities during Balkan War to help rehabilitate people from over 120 countries. You heard me correctly, 120. Why is this so epic? Because we have barely 240, we have 236 or 7 countries in the world, which means the more than a half of the world experience in modern time a magnitude of atrocities that are being inflicted by humankind. And with that in mind, how we navigate things, how we do the business, how do we interact, how do we bring new workforce, how do we expand socially, economically, how, like, for example, most of you in Malaysia. Malaysia is booming social economically. A lot of beautiful things are happening, exponential growth. People are coming from different parts of the world, right? And it's becoming more and more diverse, social economical epicenter in Asia. But again, how is now that creating ripple effects in other neighboring countries and other continents, frankly, right? Because nobody can do the business by themselves, no alone, right? So with that in mind, brings really great point here, because we're seeing also interesting challenges. We're seeing multi-generational challenges that I wanted to also depict a little bit before we jump into the legacy part, which I want to close this conversation with you, because from the topics and subtopics that you desire to learn more, I wanted to also give you the tools that can really just be actionable for you, that are simple yet extremely powerful. And with that in mind, you might be wondering, Izabela, why is it so important to understand the multi-generational workforce today? The answer might not be as simple, but I will try to attempt, because this is where I'm going. Right now, we have 5 generations in workforce. 5 generations that are out simultaneously working with each other. They require different approach and communication style, but also clearly different types of understanding. So think about it, not only communication style, but now the leadership that we're talking about, and types of leaders that will recognize and be equipped to deal with the level of complexities that are now having, not only an organization itself, in industries that they're trying to navigate to survive and thrive, but also, yes, you got it, also with people that are working with them, because people of every organization are what? The biggest assets. So we have a Generation Z, the newest generation that joined, right? Those are people that are born in 1997 to 2012. Some of them are literally right now joining workforce for first time, or trying to figure it out how they fit, or trying also to get internship or learn. And then we have this huge hodgepodge of millennials from 1998 to 1996. That also require a very different approach, what matters to them, what's important to them, and what they care. Then we have a Generation Xers from 1965 to 1980. And the reason why I'm bringing that up, it's like such a huge hodgepodge of that generation, which, by the way, I belong to. Who else belongs to that generation? Feel free to comment. Because reason what I'm saying is, you have, not only we need to know where we fit, right? Where do we belong? How others are accepting us or resonate with us, but also what do we need to do and adjust in order to be more effective, so that we can not only lead better, but create a better working environment, have a better performance, better cultural aspects, so that not only we individually can thrive, but also organizationally, right? And then we also have a baby boomers. That our generation is quite still represented here in the United States, in some parts of the world, depending on what happened during the time. We're talking about post-Second World War, 1946 to baby boomers to 1964, which is very interesting how much of that generation is represented in the workforce still to today. And then we have silent generation that is being born from 1928 to 1945. And it's very interesting because they're not anymore in workforce. In some countries, sadly, they have to be, because people can retire and they social economically cannot afford not to work. And because of social economic margins, what they can make, it's literally survival. I actually had a conversation with someone, brilliant, absolutely most accomplished woman in many ways, saying, Izabela, I am in my 70s. I'm frankly 77, and I still have to work. I cannot afford to retire because I don't have nothing to retire with. And she spent all of her life giving so much, contributing, and her ideas being taken and her efforts are being utilized, but she was not repaid for what she was worth. And it's so interesting aspects of something that I wanted to also point out here. It's great to give, but also it's great to receive. And a lot of cultures, specifically women, and I want to address this, where it's expected for women that will do more of self-sacrifice. And then we continue to play the role, and when of certain time of age we became, it's going to be very hard to transition. So why I'm bringing this up so early for everyone to really hear it, that we have not only dynamics between generations, how they interact, but we also have a really interesting dynamics here, the gaps of what is happening between also diverse workforce and how we treat diversity. How do we see expectations? What we expect from male employees versus female for generations to come. From baby boomers, you might be surprised when what they will say, what those expectations look like and continue to look like. And definitely, I would say it's different from what I'm seeing from ours. But in the same time, guys, we have a huge, huge opportunity to adjust the game. So with that in mind, I also wanted to say that it's not just knowing the differences of who belongs to different age group, but it's also about understanding what pain points each of these generations bring. If you're born post-war during Depression time, it's very interesting the mindset and how those parents will raise their children, and how they will have sense of money, how they'll also have sense of what is important, what is valuable, what is appreciated, right? So if we're not paying attention to that, we're also having really interesting dynamics of how we're procreating and newer generations, and what those generations believe in, what they have opportunity to accomplish on personal level, but also on professional. Those generations had so much ceiling that ceiling was really just barely pushed with my generation of Generation X. Think about that now, Generation Y and millennials. The ceiling on socioeconomic, equal pay, rights, as well as bigger diverse groups, not only ethnically, but also in terms of their sexual orientation, their upbringing, a level of education, and a true importance, right? Because right now, many companies are struggling. And through my advisement with many Fortune 500, and specifically multinational in different parts of the world, we need to really be so astute, not only what's happening now, but also where the organizations or countries are going, where they're headed, and how that fits with those values. You remember those values I mentioned that we're born with, born into it based on what we're exposed to? That first initial years of our development, the parents that gave us the best they could, that raised us the best way could, what they knew or what they could not only give us, but what they could tell us, right? What they could educate us with. And then as soon we start with educational trajectory and universities later in life, we start really seeing different scope and different aspects of it. So we had a chance to now touch on leadership heavily, hear a little bit about my story, which I will tackle more in a bit, but also really to look at this very strong pain point of these multi-generational challenges, right?
We have a few questions, Izabela, just maybe we could connect with the audience. So they are asking some questions. I added it to your chat.
Sorry, I didn't see it, so let me go find where that is. Thank you so much. Yes, what are the questions please? Where are we?
The first one is, hi Izabela, at what stage in his career path and how does a leader develop? That's the first question. So at what stage in his career path and how does a leader develop?
That is a beautiful question. Leaders develop from early on by observing our own environment that we grew up. And that is when we start questioning why our parents are, how they're making decisions, what they're telling us, what they're feeding us, what we're learning from them, right? And then starts early on with elementary to high school, what we're learning from our teachers and what we're learning to our peers. If you look at back, every single one of you, you will see how much of that is going on, right? The other part is obviously when we start pursuing university and trying to figure out concentration we want to study, what we have affinity for, and what works for us, right? And what doesn't. Then it's very quickly like we're taking reins of our own life. We're taking a responsibility for what we do and how we handle things. And then what happens? Then from there, obviously, if we're lucky, we get an environment that nurtures that and strategically further develop. Some organizations have already those plans and they can recognize beautiful traits that you have or things that you're not even aware of what you're super good and capable of. And when you know more how you self-discover when you're given these opportunities, magic happens. So I hope that answered part of it. The second part is that intentional leadership development, like I chose to study this for decades and then finish my master's degree because I was so fascinated by it that I wanted to be able to not only develop myself further as a subject matter expert, but also to push things further and develop new concepts because now understanding what is going on and what is missing or what we need to do in order to lead better, how can I be part of the solution versus the problem? So many of you are already doing that you probably don't even know. And with that in mind, I just wanted to say, continue further developing, even if others are not investing in you, because everything you do to further develop yourself, year after year, trust me, it's going to create so many amazing dividends. Next question, Andrea, please.
So the second question is, Izabela, sometimes I feel I'm not good enough. How do I overcome that?
That is a fantastic question. I wanted to just say this. All of us think the same. Even today, every time, every day, reason why. We are programmed, sadly, with the systems in the place that we focus more on negative stuff than positive. And every time, think about this. If you finish and accomplish something amazing and everything was perfect, right? Why do you go back to things that you fail on or things that were just smearing a little bit of that amazing magic? Because that's how we're programmed, right? We always go back to what did not work out. Even that takes a little tiny percentage in all of that. So why I'm sharing this is we did an analysis and study in early 2000. If 10 people in the room talking to each other and something negative happened, how many people will repeat outside of the room that negative information? At that time, I was astonished. There was already in early 2000, 7 of 10. So 70% will repeat it, share it, and focus on it. Then we did same study close to end of the 2018, and was really interesting that at the time we set 10 of 10. I joked around 9.25, because even if that one person would not maybe fully disclose everything, at least will allude that something negative is happening. So reason I'm bringing this up is we're not saying enough of everything else you do very well, on everything else that you are capable of doing, on everything else that you consistently perform and deliver, because we're automatically looking for what's missing and what is not there. So if you're not getting the compliments, if you're not getting true, genuine praise, if you're not constantly seeing how great or good you're doing, and if you're not doing that to yourself because you're not trained to do that, we are programmed to actually do opposite of that. You are part of the other 7.9 billion of people on this planet Earth that feels the same. Only difference is that some people are constantly in that state of mind and they cannot snap out of it, while others are learned or still learning how to tone that voice in the background and say, fine, I remember, yes, I did still fail, let me keep going, I actually see the progress. And the other reason I want to contribute to that is we are not permitted as adults to fail. That's also the educational system, and I'm being part of many educational systems and many boards, and I'm sharing this very humbly because we're seeing situation, and this particular situation is about we're not seeing enough opportunity where we are actually not only changing the script, right, how we're teaching and how do we are allowing adults to fail, because that's the part of learning curve and it's not a part of the punishment and disappointment and putting someone down. So when that changes, everything else changes. So I really hope that you will start making that change within yourself and with people around you, and you will see how quickly not only you're going to be not just more than not enough, but more than enough. Okay. And I just wanted to say, start practicing just those 2 simple steps, focusing on all the great things you're doing, and then do the tally. And every day I did so many of these things. And even if you wanted to say things that you're not as happy or you feel like you did better, you'll be amazed that always will be trajectory of how much more you did and how much more positively you can assess your situation than negatively.
You can put it on your fridge, right? And then just write it every day on that paper on your fridge with the magnet.
Absolutely, you can. And smiley face that says, I am enough and I am more than enough. Because nobody just wants to be enough. What is enough? It's enough is just like, I'm thirsty and I just get a bottle of water. I mean, I'm not as thirsty as I was, but just enough, right? But could I drink another 3 bottles of water? Yes, I could. You see what I mean? Why would you limit yourself to something that is just there when you can be just so much more, right?
We have a few more questions. So one of them is just a comment from Nonadia. Izabela, at the start of your talk, I agree with you that leadership is developed from the early childhood period. So that's what Nonadia is saying. And then we have one question from Jasmine, who just joined us. She's from the young generation, so it's exactly who you want to talk to. How do we acknowledge and break barriers? Very serious question. Towards recognizing our leadership traits.
I love that. How do we recognize leadership traits early on? First of all, we need to understand what type of leadership traits we are celebrating and finding important, right? And those leadership traits that I mentioned in that acronym of leadership, those are the traits that I live by. And those are the traits that I would definitely emphasize to start with. And then start recognizing them in other people's behavior, right? When you see them that are doing, that they're loyal, that they exude excellence, that they have a great attitude, that have a great discipline, that are able to provide support and education, that you can relate to them regardless for how seasoned they are, that are not talking down to you just because you're young, or that they're truly vested in your best interests, that they're reliable, that they show up, that you can count on them, right? That are offering extra that service and support, that are also exuding humility, that are showing their integrity. It's so different, right? And then they're also on the purpose, either through their title, either through position or opportunity that they have to make a difference. And when we do that, those are the traits that you can start like, oh my God, I love this in that person. This person makes me super good. I recognize this now. I wanted to be more like them. I would like to be mentored. I like to learn more, or I already mastered this. How can I now do this among my peers and be different? How can I make a big, huge support and make a positive impact? And when you do that, it's amazing, because then you start recognizing others, and guess what happens? Others start recognizing in you. I hope that answered your question.
That's perfect. And I want you to connect now. So I will just stop the live stream, and I want you to connect with the people in the room a little bit, if it's okay with you,